Since 2012, the United States Army has already cut 80,000 soldiers. Subsequently, that equals about 13 brigade combat teams. And according to the Army Times, another 40,000 are still on the chopping block, which bring our numbers down to a very low 450,000. These cuts come in the wake of intense budget cuts where the DoD has failed to pass bills to allocate funding to military service. With the way these cuts are happening, recruiters cannot keep up with the deficits because even when the economy is poor, the military is not looked at as a dream job. I'm here today to persuade you that the only way we can ensure that our national security interests are at heart and that our recruiting numbers remain where they're supposed to be in order to assure that we need to implement mandated military service for every able-bodied American who has yet to even walk into a recruiter's office or might not otherwise have done so. I presently have about 9 years of my own service in the Air Force, and I come from a family which has represented all branches and all ranks. I was 20 years old when I enlisted, and to this day I will tell you it was the greatest career move I ever could have made. Because even with 6 years of higher level education, the benefits I have gained from representing that uniform are far greater than anything I would have gotten in the civilian sector. What's greater is that the incentives are not handouts, they are privileges that you earn, and I get great pride from that. As a present enlisted service member married to an officer from another branch, this does affect me. Because at any moment in time, my husband or I could come up on the chopping block, and that is motivation every day for both of us to be the best we can be and to do our best, so that if our names ever come across that desk, it is quickly passed over. Additionally, I have 2 children who could one day benefit from the decision to serve their country, even if only for a short time. And I will encourage them to do so, unless of course it is a law by then. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I want you to know that I would never try to persuade you to do anything that I would not do or have not already done. I will begin by first defining the problem of force reduction and decreased recruiting numbers. Then I will give you 2 reasons why I feel that these problems have come about. And finally, I will tell you how mandated military service can be the end-all solution. Now that we have outlined our roadmap, let's begin with the problem. The goal of present reductions in force is to not only trim the service, but it is to maintain a professional standard boasting only the best of the best. Sequestration alone is expected to go far beyond the numbers that are needed from those cuts. So that means recruiting must remain consistent, if not better, in order to prevent our branches of service from shrinking so small that they can no longer support future combat operations. For one thing, these reductions will affect not one branch, it will affect all. According to Fox Business, the Army will look to cut 40,000 more troops by 2018. The Marines are looking to cut 10,000, and the Air Force is already the smallest it has been since 1947 when it first became its own entity. The goal of sequestration is to weed out the weak and only keep the strong in order to maintain an elite force. Most often this means cutting your leadership, your non-commissioned officers, your warrant officers, and your commissioned officers. For another thing, recruiters are struggling to maintain their numbers as reductions become dangerously close to being unable to support future conflict. Last year, USA Today reported a 14% decrease in the Army's recruitment for the first time in 6 years. As of May 2015, all other branches of service reported that they had met their quotas, but by 2016 that will change because their numbers are also going to become significantly different. With our problem in mind, let's explore some of the causes. There are at least 2 causes for the most recent deficit or decline in military recruiting numbers. First of all, this is the seventh year that Congress has failed to pass the bill which appropriates defense funds in time for the new fiscal year, according to U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter. Budget sequestration has been at the forefront of difficulties for 4 years, and as Carter has explained, we are $38 billion short of what we need to maintain the force that we have. Constraints mean difficult decisions in determining what numbers are needed in what areas and how to maintain a capable and ready force that is still budget friendly. And that is why we are cutting the highest ranking individuals first and slowly dwindling down to the lower ranks, because the higher ranks make more money. Secondly, stricter service requirements in regards to tattoo placement, piercings, weight standards, and past criminal convictions have made it difficult for individuals to pass the recruiting interviews. The Army reported an 80% rejection rate last year alone in 2014. Because, as recruiters said, with fewer spaces, we must make tougher choices. There's no longer room for waivers. The Pentagon estimates that of all those who enter the recruiting office, only 25% will actually be qualified. Now that we know our problem and what is causing it, let's discuss our solution. Mandated military service in the military would not only help recruiting deficits, but it would offer substantial benefits to anyone who applies and is qualified. Previously stated, only 25% of those who actually visit are qualified. That doesn't take into account the Americans from all across the country who are fit and have not yet been called upon. According to the Pentagon's Joint Advertising and Market Research Studies program, a large majority of young high school graduates won't consider military service even when the economy is bad, because it's an unattractive lifestyle. Former felons, on the other hand, who struggle to find work in the civilian sector because of a criminal record, run to the military because there used to be a time when they could get a waiver in exchange for service. However, for those individuals who are fully qualified and not looking to military service, maybe we can entice them with the incentives and the bonuses. For those who discover they have found their niche and choose to stay in, you will have full medical and dental, which will also pass on to your dependents. You can get a pension by 20 years, sometimes 15. Your college benefits, the GI Bill, and tuition assistance might pay for 100% of your tuition for any college degree. You can enjoy the discounts and perks of restaurants and movie theaters, for example. The ability to travel around the world and to bring your family with you. You will have a guaranteed bi-weekly paycheck and a housing allowance that, if you shop right, will pay 100% of your rent. And when you're ready to settle down, the VA will cover your mortgage. Those who choose to get out before retirement will maintain some of those benefits, such as the education and the VA mortgage loans. And as a bonus, they will have a camaraderie unlike any they have ever known, because even when you stop serving, those people never stop being your friend. In conclusion, if we do not want our military to drop below the levels that are necessary to provide sufficient defense, then we must consider mandated service as a means of maintaining our recruitment numbers in periods of significant reductions. Now let's briefly discuss what we learned today. First, we identified our problem as the inability to maintain recruiting numbers of highly qualified individuals during periods of sequestration. Sequestration seeks to weed out the weak and only keep the strong. Army recruiters saw significant decreases in retention for 2014, and by 2016, all other branches will be affected. Then we looked at the two causes for the most recent declines. Congress failing to pass the bill for 7 years in a row. Stricter service requirements, making recruiters more particular about who they're going to pick in order to make sure that their quotas are not affected. Finally, we discussed why mandated service is not only a valuable means for protecting our militaristic interests, but why it is a great benefit for all those who will qualify. There's a large population of qualified Americans whom recruiters would love to have in order to improve their recruiting numbers. Not only does the military service benefit the member, but it also benefits their family. Force reduction is not new, and it is not going away anytime soon. The more troops that we involuntarily separate, especially at the higher, more experienced ranks, we rely on recruiters to find elite individuals in order to fill those voids. We must recognize that the government does need to allocate funding effectively. However, we can't ignore concerns over eliminating individuals who possess great experience. The goal of recruiters is to pick apart every recruit requesting to serve and to eliminate anyone who does not meet one or more standards of professional service. Once that's accomplished, we have to have a system in place to fill the deficit, and that's where mandated military service will shine. We need to find every able-bodied, fully qualified American with integrity and greatness to represent the uniform for an exchange of phenomenal benefits in a fledgling civilian sector. All too often we hear the negatives of military service, and it is time that we promote the good things. for the sake of improving our country, for one thing, and also for the sake of helping those who represent our country every single day in military, whether they choose to do it or someone thought they were so great that they recognized them by name, called upon them, and asked them to serve for a couple years. Because even though it's only a couple years, some service is much better than no service.